Hi, welcome back to The Perspective on Bodhisattva. I'm with Stanley Harsha, veteran US diplomat in Indonesia and author of Like the Sun and the Moon, about relations between the two countries. We spoke a bit about post-9/11 security affairs. Let's move more towards tolerance and religious tolerance. Indonesia is a majority Islamic country, and Islamophobia has become a sort of touchstone issue for the past decade at least, and longer. How do you see the situation?
Well, I think, first of all, I think it's very important that Indonesia play a world role as an example of a tolerant, democratic, Islamic majority country. It's such a great example. And I think if Americans could really understand the way Islam is practiced in Indonesia, the way Muslims are here, and I think Muslims throughout the world are largely tolerant, but if they could see the sort of really liberal, tolerant viewpoint of Indonesians, then the perceptions of Islam in the United States could be vastly changed for the better. And this is important because the misunderstandings between the religions creates like hatred and can lead to conflict. In the United States, as I point out in the book, the majority of Americans are tolerant, including towards Islam. But there is a minority of sort of far-right Christian kind of fundamentalists, okay? Mostly not as well educated, who are afraid of Islam, hate Muslims, and have like just a really sort of belligerent viewpoint. And I think that's very important to stop that trend.
And do you see Indonesians are very open? We both live here, have lived here, and know that. Do you think that current sort of generations of Americans, as the nations continue to interact, there is will be a marked difference in the way, given that they've grown up in post 9/11, in the post 9/11 world? Do you think there will be a marked difference and improvement in relations on a personal level between Indonesians and Americans?
I think it's very possible with the young generation, because for one thing, according to polls, it's the younger generation that is most tolerant and most understanding of Islam. Younger generation, they get a lot of their information off of the internet, so they read everything. Okay, they read blogs like Reddit in which they get all this information, and I think based on that, they have a better balanced viewpoint than older conservative Americans who only watch Fox News, and that's all they watch. And the Indonesian side as well, young people get a lot of what they get off the internet. Very, very international, the information that they get. And so I think that's a very positive trend. On the Indonesian side, there's a slight trend, and I don't think I can measure it, but there's a slight trend towards intolerant viewpoints by a minority of people. So you see, not getting better actually, you see like continue attacks against Christians, sort of hard viewpoint, that I think it's very important for the vast majority of Indonesians and the Indonesian government to counter this. And they can do so just by learning more about other cultures and other religions, and actually moderates having a strong voice.
Do you see this as essentially rooted in the sort of anti-American feeling that rose over the past few years, or do you think it would have sort of happened anyway?
Well, again, I mean, according to polls and according to my sense of things, is the vast majority of Indonesians are tolerant. Like 80–90% of Indonesians, and that's never changed. That's never changed throughout 200 years of history. That's been a constant. That's been maybe less than 10% are sort of really hard in their viewpoints in terms of Muslims. I think it's actually two roots of it. I think a major cause of it is import of Wahhabism from the Middle East, from Saudi Arabia and so forth. Okay, so everybody you talk to who's knowledgeable about this just says that, yeah, the Wahhabis are investing a lot. They're bringing clerics here, you know, they're really, really influencing it, and I think that is a very, very important influence that's very negative, and everybody recognizes it. I think the other part about people who have sort of more fundamentalist reactionary viewpoints is just the fact that Indonesian society is changing so quickly. You have modernization, and you have all these sort of modern influences that make more older conservative people just kind of afraid of the change. And so sometimes they turn to like a very sort of reactionary conservative viewpoint in reaction to all of all the modern influence they see, cultural influence that more conservative people see as being negative, from Hollywood and so forth.
Speaking of the US's role in the country, as from your experience, what do you think are the key issues? You speak a lot about religious and tolerance in your book, but you touch on a number of other subjects, including human trafficking, numerous others, and education is another big one that we're kind of moving towards, and the role that will play. What do you think are the most important social roles the U.S. mission here can play in the coming years?
Oh, in terms of the U.S. government?
Yeah.
Well, I think continued assistance, particularly in areas that where we have common interests, like we're under the comprehensive partnership right now. I think that's really the best way to go. Something where both countries see a common interest. So that would be investment in education, higher education, and basic education, to help Indonesia to train thousands of more Indonesians to have master's degrees and PhDs, to create a better system of education, which is badly needed. I think anything in terms of just helping bring knowledge to this country, any assistance that we can give just in terms of books. If the United States government could simply make it possible for thousands of pesantrens to have good books in which they can learn about the world and science and so forth, that would have a tremendous impact, because just the access to just knowledge and books at all these Islamic boarding schools and the poorer schools throughout the country they're just a great lack. I think most importantly, though, is that the U.S. mission here and the U.S. government always should have diplomats who really understand the culture of this country and are very sensitive to that, so that we always approach our relationship with Indonesia with sensitivity to the sort of the pride of this great country, and to never be like a bull in a china closet, sort of coming across as arrogant.
Okay. All right, we're going to take another quick break, but we're going to be back in just a minute on The Perspective on Berita Satu. Stay with us.